What's up, guys? Sorry I'm running a little bit late. Gotta take the dog out. Let's see. Maybe I can get the mic working this time without putting too much effort. Let's see. How's the sound? Let me know if it's off or if you can hear me at all. And we'll get right into it. Mhm. Let's see. I think it's okay. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. Yeah, it sounds good. I think so. We'll wait for a few people to get in here first before we begin. Man, it's like almost 80 degrees. I don't know what's wrong with my camera. Oh. Hold on a second. This camera. Here we go. I think I got it. This wire is kind of wonky. To be kind of careful. I was saying is it's really hot here for February. I think it's like 80 degrees out. So naturally I'm back outside training. um so yeah, on the poll yesterday, or what was it, day before? I put up if people wanted to hear about my training or Bruce's training or do like a video review. So I decided to do Bruce's training because I think it won slightly. I think by a few percent. So basically, what I'm going to go over is I have like part of an interview from Paul Bax's book, Disciples of the Dragon. It's Howard Williams. I don't know how long ago it was, probably early 2000s. And then I've got some a couple bits and pieces of Jesse's second book. A little closer. Let me know if it's any better. All right. We can go ahead and get right into it, I guess. So, um, this is Paul Bax's book. So I don't know if you can quite see it, but I'll try to zoom in. Um, it says over the years, the art of Jeet Kune Do, as taught by James Lee and Bruce Lee, has almost been forgotten. Howard Williams, a James Lee student for 5 years, talks about his training under Bruce and James and sets the record straight as to what was actually taught there. He first just kind of like gives an intro, and he says that James Lee had about 10 students, so it's very few people, and I think James Lee's garage, and so the quality is pretty high. Um, Naturally, when the numbers get a little bit higher, you lose a little bit of quality. Um, but he talks about how he didn't have any previous training except for JKD. Um, so let's go to the next one. Let's see. There we go. Let's see. He says, Paul asks him, do you think James systemized JKD a little more than Bruce may have wanted? Howard says, I believe James was a better teacher than Bruce. Bruce was a technician and a perfectionist, but he didn't have patience with beginners. Jimmy conveyed things a bit better than Bruce. And he says, "Is it true both Bruce and Jimmy were into internal arts?" Howard says, "Yes, it is. This wasn't included in our training, though. I am in that stage now. I have heard in the last stages of Bruce's life, he was putting clean holes through 1 inch pine with his finger jabs. So he's taking like a 1 inch piece of wood and just constantly conditioning his fingers. But he was able to put a clean hole through a 1 inch pine board." And Paul asks him after that, he says, "Why do you think Bruce reached the level he did?" Howard says, "Well, back in the early years," this is what Jesse talks about in his first book. What's up, Gus? In his first book, he talks about in the early years where he would go back to Hong Kong and he would show his seniors what he had developed, how far he'd gotten and how much progress he had made. And his seniors were able to get in on him as many times as he did with them. And then he says this made him very frustrated. He almost gave up martial arts completely. But at that point, he decided that he was going to be even more determined, no matter what it took, to develop something no one else had. From that point on, he trained fanatically, and there was no stopping him. And naturally, he had some changes in the stuff that he was doing, and the reasoning behind that strategically. Tommy's talked about it a few times. So basically, Tommy says that, Bruce's seniors were here and Bruce was here. And in order to get past them, he had to do I think he said 50,000 reps of each Wing Chun technique in order to get past them, right? So he had to reduce the techniques that he was practicing, and he had to do about 50,000. But he realized that every time he would get a bit better, they would get a bit further away from him, right? And so what he ended up doing was he would get better and they would get better, right? So on and so forth. And what he ended up doing was he changed the way he would attack and the things that he was doing in the structure. So he ended up going around, right? So, all right, let's get on to that part. What's up, Alex? How's it going, man? Are we still, let's see. Are we still on here? It keeps kicking off. Hold on a second. Let's see. If it's not one thing, it's another, man. All right. Looks like we're good. Let's see. How's the sound? Sound a little bit better? Hope so. All right, the next part. So I'll just kind of go over the actual physical training that Bruce was doing. This is Bruce Lee's non-classical gung fu, I guess you could say. This is what he called Jun Fan. So this was his Jun Fan era before he named it JKD. But what I'm going to talk about is the stuff that Jesse saw him do outside of class, right? So outside of his class, Bruce did a lot of physical hard training that was kind of specific to what he was trying to do. So in class, he would show you your forms, your techniques, and chi sao and all this stuff, footwork. But outside of class, Jesse talks about how he didn't show what he was doing to make everything work. But on this page, it's maybe a quarter way through the book or halfway. He said Bruce damaged his hands several times during his practice of Wing Chun tilt up punch. So that's this one. So he's trying to tilt it up this way. And you try to shock it from the wrist, right? He eliminated the use of this method. He continued to strike with the last 3 knuckles, but the fist struck the target in the middle knuckle locked into position center to the arm. This position allowed him to deliver a much harder strike to the wooden dummy without hurting his hands. So basically, he's starting to learn structure, how everything kind of goes together without injuring yourself. And it says, the 10th lesson that I learned from Bruce was how he developed power. So this is how he actually made his stuff start to work. Everything started to come together. in terms of like, it's good to know techniques and strategically what you can make work, but it's more important to know what makes the techniques work, right? And so, as you'll see in this part, it's quite a bit of overkill, but it got him results. Um, so he says the 10th lesson that I learned from Bruce was how he developed power. During that period that I knew him, he did the following things to develop power: 50 reps a day of the first Wing Chun form, right? So the whole, was it Silum Tao? He did the whole form done with maximum contraction of the arm muscles. So while he's doing it, right, he's contracting his muscles as hard as he can, right? And that's what I've talked about before, right? So you do it with maximum contraction of the arm, and then he did, separately from that, 500 maximum force punches done in the air with hand weights, or he had the iron rings, the rings that go around your arm and you're punching. He did 500 punches in the air a day, and then after that he did 200 push-ups with the palms or fingertips, so just on your fingers, and then sometimes done with a student sitting on his shoulders. so he's doing push-ups on his fingers while someone's sitting on his back. And then it says spring resistance exercises done from a variety of positions. And then he did wrist curls done with and without weights. So he's trying to strengthen the forearm, the wrist, the fingers, the elbow. Wide swings with the iron rings. So he put the rings on and he's swinging really wide, trying to strengthen the shoulder muscles. Squeezing a hard rubber ball. So again, grip. Resistance and pressure exercises done against the arms of the wooden dummy. So he's applying, again, isometric or dynamic tension pressure as he does it. So he's doing everything that he's, trying to improve on with maximum tension. Arm extension exercises sometimes done with a weighted bar. So you ever seen the one where people put it across the barbell across their forearms and they extend their arms all the way out? That was what he was doing. So he's trying to extend his arm out with weight across it, and then he rolls it up and down his forearms. And Jesse talks about it in this book where he found a way to lock up his scapula, and you can lock up your scapula in a certain way in order to stabilize your structure. And it says, while he locked his shoulder blades or against a wall or another person who pressed down against his arms with all of their weight. And I think Tommy had talked about, he had a really strong bong sao. And Jesse asked him in so many words, like, how did you develop this? And he said that Bruce wouldn't tell him, like he wouldn't give him too much detail. So, but as you can see, it's just a lot of training. I mean, that's every day he's doing this stuff, So, all right, so that's the next one. And then once you see this, you get an idea like what made his modified Wing Chun so powerful. It's because he was training harder in a day than most people train in a couple weeks. That's a lot of reps. That's a lot of upper body training. You know what I mean? Yes, I agree, Aki. The fact that he was talking about locking his scapula shows how obsessed he was with the stuff. Yes, I agree. So we'll get into the next part. He kind of talks about like the stages of Bruce's development when he started to move into a different stage of strategy. Let's see what the next one is. Here we go. Oh, this is part of the last part. So he says that for a time, this is where Bruce would get some of his ideas. He said, for a time, Bruce used many of the classical Chinese exercises that he had learned from various Kung Fu books. So he would go to I think there's a bookstore in Canada. It was close to Seattle where he was. And he would drive up there and he'd buy all kind of books, like old Kung Fu books, But with the passing of time, he turned more and more toward the use of Western strength building materials in his training. Because there was the progressive overload principle and the principle of specificity, which means like you want it to be as close as what you're doing in order to strengthen something. You don't want to do something totally unrelated, right? Yeah, most people can barely go to the gym 3 times a week. It's so true. What's up, Anthony? All right, let's go to the next part. Whoops, sorry about that. So he says, I know it's kind of hard to see on this one. Let's see. Hold on a second. I'll try to zoom out a little bit more. There we go. During the period that I was associated with Bruce, I saw him experiment with 3 stages of technique development. So this talks about where his first stage is more or less what he learned from Wing Chun. And he made his techniques very strong, but like I talked about earlier, his seniors were here and he couldn't get past them because as he got better, they would get better, right? Because they're doing the same thing. So if someone's been doing something the same as you, like if you're practicing the same thing and they've been doing it longer, you can get stronger at your stuff, but if they keep practicing, they're going to keep getting better too, right? So it's hard to get past what they're doing. So the first stage is what I refer to as his static stage. His thinking and training during this period was strongly based on the techniques and philosophy of the Wing Chun system. He would wait, key word here, he would wait for his opponent to attack, and then he would block and counter. So the first stage is like a static stage where you're just in a Wing Chun position and you're waiting on the person to attack before you go in, right? So you wait, you deflect, you counter. This method of defense and attack depended on the use of development of strong sticking hand skills as a counter and controlling method. Bruce's sticking skills were a mixture of subtle deflection and strong pressure. The deflection was taken from the Wing Chun style, and the pressure was his own invention. So basically what Jesse's saying is like, Anthony, I just had an argument with a concept guy. He said that Bruce should have not kicked the karate guy when he dropped to his knees. Jesse was a ref. They don't have a clue. Well, it was a fight. I mean, the thing is like the karate guy, he like pushed for the fight for a long time. And Bruce finally said, okay, let's fight, you know? So you get what you ask for. You have to be careful with what you ask for, you know? So the pressure thing that Jesse's talking about here is like the part from the 10th lesson where I'm talking about he's developing his forearms and his grip, and he's doing all these punches with weights. He learned that he can make everything stronger with pressure, right? And as you apply pressure, it's like you know, you're twisting a wrench and it slips off. That's the kind of pressure that he was looking for. So your attack finds the way through their defenses. Let's see. It says Bruce remained with the static stage for the first year that I knew him. But even then, he was constantly discarding old techniques and experimenting with new ones. So he's just trying different stuff, trying to figure out how to get better and past his seniors, because that was like his main motivation. A lot of people don't know that, you know, that's really what motivated him in the beginning. Is he was just trying to get past the seniors. Let's see. In his instruction and other students, he was still maintaining ties with the classical method. So what he was teaching in class was different from what he was experimenting on his own. It says even though his own ideas were clearly changing, what wasn't changing was the many underlying concepts that he had learned from Wong Chun Long. His surface techniques were to change many times, but his basic principles remained the same. All right, so this part he talks about where he started to change and kind of the reasoning for it. I've posted about this before, but you know, naturally people kind of miss it without any kind of explanation. It says the 2 major events which turned Bruce away from the static concept. So static means you're just standing there waiting for the person to attack so you can kind of counter them based on your own reaction time. It says 2 major events which turned Bruce away from the static concept of defense and attack were the fencing lunges that he learned from his brother Peter, who was a fencing champion, and a close call that he had during a fight when he was almost kicked because he waited to a counterattack. That's the Karate Man fight that Anthony's talking about, where he had a fight with a karate guy, and I think the karate guy, he was like pretty good. He had defended himself against someone with a knife. He was like, you know, it wasn't a slouch, you know. And then his association with Richard Leong, a top chief Choi Li Fut man, says that that played a part in his departure from the static period. So he's no longer waiting, right? Because the speed of Richard's attacks convinced him that it would be impossible to stop such attacks in midair. So this is the part, like, people trying to cling to the old way of doing things. It's like, these are the reasons he left that. It's like, you know, if you're just waiting for someone to attack and you think that you can predict where they're going to attack from, and they have really good speed and power, it's not going to work, man. And that's why he departed from that. So with the use of sticking concepts which were based on waiting for an opponent's attack before launching a counteroffensive, when Bruce began to think about leaving Wing Chun, the first thing he focused on was the concept of distance, which was the best distance from which to attack, the best distance to block an attack, and the best way to reach the target. So this is where he started to apply the lunging from fencing, right? Once you maintain a certain distance, you start to figure out how far it is to safely close in and hit the person before they can hit you. It says that he came to realize with enough closing speed, he could effectively operate from a safe distance, and spent several months developing a 7-foot close. So he's pushing from a distance 7 foot. That's crazy. Bruce was now into the second stage of his development and soon discovered that a closing from a distance necessitated many changes in his prior technique. He was forced to develop a new delivery system. So this is when his structure started to change. So he's no longer standing square, right? Where your shoulders are square and you're having to use both sides and your feet are kind of staggered, right? His feet, instead of staggered like this, they became more in a line so you can push forward faster. Let's see. It says several factors led Bruce to the third stage. One factor was his padded wooden dummy with a foam rubber. Prior to his use of the padded dummy practice, he had been restricted to the use of palm strikes, which severely restricted the amount of force that he could apply without injuring his wrist. The padding allowed him to apply maximum force punching attacks with the vertical fist. Eventually, this training led to the development of long-range punching attacks. The refinement of these attacks led him to the discovery that he could safely deliver these attacks without making contact with the dummy's arms. So instead of like sticking to people or trying to make contact, you're hitting around their obstructions, right? Because whatever they feel or whatever you feel when you're touching someone's arm, they feel it also. So that's why you started to go around things, right? It says this discovery was the beginning of a new era for Bruce, and his style began to look distinctly different from classical Wing Chun. Let's see. Do you think a film should be made out of the book Wrath of the Dragon? I mean, I would probably rather see an honest documentary type film on like Bruce's early period, like this part with Jesse. And then probably the Oakland period. I think that would do him and his art more justice. It would put to bed that he was a real fighter. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, they could have that stuff in there, you know. But the early period is very telling. Like all this stuff, a lot of people have no idea that any of this stuff even exists. They think he was just a Wing Chun guy and you know, he just started incorporating other people's arts. He tried a lot of different things. Don't get me wrong, you know? But this kind of tells you like what he started to use and why he started to use those things. It says other factors which contributed to the development of the third stage were the study of boxing, feints, slips, and dodges, and a bad experience that he had in a fight with another Kung Fu man. He's talking about the Wong Jack Man fight. During the course of the fight, Bruce landed several blows to the back of the Wong Jack Man's head. So that's when he was running away. Throughout the fight, he was retreating, is what he says. But the guy was running away from him. He's trying to punch him. And because you're still square, like he's still, practicing in a more square stance, you can't close the gap quickly enough. And he says Bruce went on to win the fight, but he was winded, and his conclusion was enough to direct him to development of stronger one-punch attacks. So this is when he really just started looking into more boxing stuff. And then this is the last part when Jesse knew him, the way he kind of developed his explosiveness. It said in 59 and in 1960, Bruce's surface muscularity was minimal in every area except his forearms, which were massive. Their 13.5-inch size, coupled with 11.5-inch biceps attached to a 132-pound frame, made him look like Popeye the Sailor Man. He says, I never saw a time during this period when Bruce wasn't training some part of his body. If he was sitting at a desk, his hands were busy pressing up and down against the top. So he's pushing his hands up like this, up against the desk, right? And then pushing down this way. If his hands were engaged in some other activity, he was flexing his calf muscles or pressing his feet into the floor. If he was standing, he was doing toe raises, leg and arm extensions. The limb is extended and all of the muscles are tightened, or isometric contractions against a wall or stationary object with his palms. The point that I would like to make to the reader is that Bruce was constantly working his body throughout his waking hours, and that this contributed greatly to his general ability to move explosively. And there you have it. So, if that gives you an idea, what this guy was up to. He was training all the time. But it was, again, to surpass his seniors. It had nothing to do with, just learning different martial arts styles, or, you know what I mean? That became a thing later on in order to see what he could make work, But, yeah, it's a lot of work, right? I mean, damn. Every day, doing that. That's, Aki, that was, Jesse Glover's second book, and it's out of print, and I don't think it's going to be in reprint for a while. Anthony on the chat here, he was talking to one of Jesse's students named Wolfgang, and Wolfgang said that the first book is probably going to be reprinted, but the second one's not. He says that I think the people that own the rights to it haven't said anything about reproducing it. There's 3 of them though. There's Between Wing Chun and JKD, and then this one is Bruce Lee's non-classical Kung Fu, and then the last one is I think Jesse's own development and what he had learned from Bruce. It's called non-classical Kung Fu. So, but there's so much insight in these books. That's why I share a lot of this stuff, just to kind of give people an idea of where Tommy has taught me, where it's all based off of. Like the things that he has learned from Jesse and the suggestions that he has, it all lines up, all this stuff is, it kind of matches, let's see. Give me 1 second here. I think Axel had a question for me. Let's see. Oh, Axel asked me in one of my posts. He says, "What can I say to this as a response?" I guess this is from his brother. A lot of JKD people think that it is Wing Chun, fencing, boxing, plus some wrestling. Maybe Kali. This is not what Bruce Lee intended. He would have not approved of crystallization. He said he's a Wing Chun guy for about 25 plus years. He said he replied back, classical JKD requires Wing Chun. Bruce's base art. JKD needs Wing Chun theory, and trapping like ducks need water, but style is a crystallization. You like water. What? So this is the thing. he departed from all that, as I just went over, right? Because it's not saying that some people can't make, you know, classical martial arts work, right? Because Bruce made it work initially until he ran into other people with attributes that were similar to his, like the Richard guy from Choi Li Fut. Someone with a lot of speed, swinging their arms around in a circular fashion, and they have a lot of speed and power. You're not gonna be able to make something work because that's that's just what you want to work. That's not how the stuff goes. Timing and distance is so crucial. So you need the things that are going to cut down time. You need things that are going to conceal the distance that people are, not safe from. So you have to operate from a certain distance where they can attack you and you can attack them. All this stuff is, um, not common to see because everyone thinks that you can just practice, particular martial arts and make this stuff work. You don't get to dictate how you're attacked. That's the main thing that I've kind of gathered on a lot of this stuff myself, is that you don't get to dictate how you're attacked. So when people say that it's Wing Chun, fencing, boxing, plus some wrestling, maybe Kali, it's not. You don't get it, man. Really, you start with the JKD structure in terms of efficiency and economy. So the economy of like what we're taught by Tommy, all of it is based on good physics, like it's backed by science. So the way you stand, the way you place your feet, your weight distribution, the engaging of all your muscles in a certain sequence, that gives you the maximum amount of force, relaxation, so the most speed that you can get, and everything is tactically placed once you are in a stance in order to intercept, because the whole thing is about interception. That's why it's called Jeet Kune Do. It's way of the intercepting fist. So it means you're trying to stop them as early as you can, and you try to stay as safe as you can, right? So all this stuff is based on what he discovered, like through science later on. You know how Jesse was talking about in the book. He said he started to go more towards Western methods. So he was starting to look more into science, because what can you argue about science? Like science doesn't care, But yeah, once you start to establish some structure, and you get a decent amount of speed and power and all these things, then you have to be deceptive, right? So you have to have no preparation. But yeah, a lot of people don't get that, man. Let's see. I thank God my Sifu gave me copies of all of Jesse's books. Alex, you're a lucky man because a lot of people don't have that. If you had a great student in JKD, JP, and he said, I want to test this and go fighting other martial artists, and it was recorded that it would prove that IFO JKD is by far the best. I don't really approve of people fighting people. Like, it's just not a good way to go about things, because people are crazy, man. Want revenge and all this stuff. Anthony, do you know why Jesse and his brother Mike Lee stopped talking to each other? I don't really know the whole detail behind that. You'd have to ask someone that knows better than I. But as far as I know they had a comparison of like what they were doing, and I think Jesse ran him over, like just. As far as I know. Aki, I heard Jesse talk highly of his brother. I wish there was footage of him. There is. I've shared a highlight video of him when he was teaching. It was like I guess like a demonstration. There's a part where his partner has goggles on and his hands are like this, and Mike is like a few feet away, and he reaches in and he finger jabs and he pulls the goggles down while the guy's hands are like this close to his head. So he's from a distance. He reaches in, he pulls the goggles down, and the guy's hands are just still sitting here. Like he hasn't even moved. So funny. A lot of what you and Tommy teaches in JKD, what you teach me, is helpful in my improvement in non-classical kung fu. Hey, man, glad to hear it. That's why I do this stuff. It's like people that actually care and actually train. I'm just trying to preserve it the best I can, you know. Tom C draws. Hey JP, love your streams. This is the first one I've caught live. T, what's up, T Bob? The Maverick. Between my CPU and Tommy, you guys are the best at science of non-classical. Yeah, I mean, it's just we're really just repeating the stuff that Jesse and Bruce have talked about or you know shared. Nothing new under the sun. I haven't, you know, I haven't said anything that hasn't already been said. It's just that it's kind of covered up over the years. There's so much misinformation and people pushing their agenda for whatever reason. Jeff Hollows, Mike Lee was awesome. Yes, he was. That guy had some insane attributes. In Jesse's first book, he talks about how Mike got so strong he started getting into weightlifting, and he was bench pressing. Right, he got up to doing 200 pounds. He did 200 reps of 200 pounds in a session, in one session. So the same day, he did 200 reps. Now, I don't think he did it in one go, right? He probably did like 10 sets of 20 or, you know what I mean? 20 sets of 10, something like that. Aki, there is footage of Mike Lee on YouTube. I'll post it. I believe JKD will work on pro fighters too. I don't see why it wouldn't. You just have to be taught properly. That's the main thing. A lot of these guys, and I'm not saying any names, they just don't have any good mobility. They don't have good tactics. They're not training the drills properly. And the main thing is the stuff that Bruce was teaching back in the day. Again, he wasn't showing people what made his stuff work. Like what made his punches and stuff so powerful. He didn't show people that. He showed you how to do the punch, but he didn't show exactly what he was doing. So much overkill to make his arm like a bionic arm when he punched you. Let's see. Tom C. In terms of simplicity and directness, I think people often overlook how important these things are in a real go because we have to remember adrenaline fear. Exactly. So that's why you want to intercept people. So like if you're in a real situation, you want to get them as quickly as you can. You want to try to intercept their intention, not even their physical, right? Because you don't know how good people are. You don't want to give people the chance to show you how good they are because they might be better. Or they could distract you and tie you up, and then you get attacked by someone behind you. And then you're screwed because you've wasted too much time. Time is so crucial. Omar, what about Bruce's training during his final years, 1972-73? I think if you look at John Little's books, he has a lot of the stuff that Bruce was doing in that time period. In the Howard Williams interview, I talked about the beginning of the stream. They said that they found 1-inch pine boards in Bruce's home after he died, where he was thrusting his fingers through 1-inch pine wood. So he's sticking his fingers through wood. And then in the John Little books, you see a lot of circuit training. So he would do bench press for 30 seconds to a minute and then go to the next exercise, leg press or leg extensions. He was training his whole body in a sequence of training because most of the day he's probably filming, So a lot of everything that he was doing is probably really efficient. And he probably got a lot of practice just being on the film set demonstrating. So there's probably a lot more in details than like the John Little books. But from what I gather, like most of what he was doing is just trying to keep his body in good shape for filming. Let's see. Yes, he said he developed his own method of sticking also. Yes. That's why I love Tommy's teachings. He's a tough Glaswegian that knows how nasty things can go outside the bar. It's cold and pissing down. Yes. You have to keep a sense of reality, Someone asked Tommy one time, he said, what if you're on the beach and you're in the sand and someone starts and you get in a confrontation? What do? You can't do, clean footwork and all that stuff. And Tommy goes, man, know when to fight and when not to fight. Like, in other words, don't go to places where you think there's going to be trouble. If you sense something's kind of off, just leave, You're not supposed to go around trying to prove your martial art works. Like, that's not the purpose of it, Let's Let's see. Gus, JP, what is your approach for dealing with imbalances? For example, if someone is better at punching than at kicking, where would you recommend to focus the majority of training? Um, I believe the way that most people do this kind of thing is they'll do things in cycles. So a period of a couple months, like maybe 2 or 3 months, if you work on just, you know, I don't know, kicking, like if you just pick 2 kicks, and let's say you're going to work that the majority of those 2 to 3 months, and each week, if you really want to get good, each week you should be shooting for probably 4 to 10,000 reps a week, and that's static, like kicking statically, making sure you're getting a hip rotation and with footwork, and you can break them all down, just like Tommy does in the online lessons. You know, he breaks everything down. But if you break it down and you're doing that many reps a week, you will get better. You might not be great comparatively to someone else, right? But that's not the point. It's like, as long as you can make it work against most people, that's the goal. Tommy unlocked what real JKD is. Tommy is the genius, like Bruce and Jesse. Would you agree? Oh yeah, definitely. Because he reverse engineered all this stuff. Like he worked it backwards. Like he would just watch videos and look at magazines of Bruce, and he kind of figured out how to all went together. Just looking at like the stuff that Bruce said, he reverse engineered it, which is pretty impressive. Good point. Multiple opponents. Yes, you always have to consider that, because who fights fair these days, right? Have you read Wrath of the Dragon? Yes. Yes. And I believe there's probably more to that, like in terms of like fights that he had. But yeah, it gives you a good idea. I like the Joe Louis part. That was one of my favorites. JP, do you think it's okay to have some kind of trapping in your JKD? I wouldn't. So trapping and like grappling, all this stuff is not like off the charts. It's not like you can't do it, right? But it should be incidental or accidental. If you focus on, the most important things, and that's to take out primary targets on everyone, then rarely will you have to use any of that stuff. There are, situations where it makes sense to do that. Like I've seen Tommy's taught us, like if someone has like pointing their finger at you and then they're getting ready to punch you, he's taken like people's fingers and like wrists and like snapped them and turned them different ways. He shows you different ways you can snap the finger and turn them different ways. His crash system is like a military system. So you have like your hands in a certain position. You go in and you snap the neck. That's it's called the crash system, and it's really for capturing or killing people. But you control the head, turn them, and sometimes you can just capture them and cover their mouth and their nose, and cover their eyes so they can't see. Pretty good stuff. But again, it's incidental. It shouldn't be something you look for. You know what I mean? There are points where if someone's like this and you just turn them off and you hit them in the nuts or the chin or whatever, and it works for that situation. But it should be a quick one-shot thing. Everything should be trained like to be a one-shot deal. And if something goes wrong, of course you have a follow-up, or you know how to evade, be safe. Let's see. Is it true that Kareem said Bruce had trouble with his reach? I have heard people say they didn't provide any evidence. Kareem said Bruce had trouble with his reach? I'm sure. I mean, the guy's 7'2", man. But just think about this. If a 7'2" guy ran across a Bruce Lee and had no idea the guy was going to attack him, so a guy like Bruce Lee is going to attack him, and he's maybe a foot or two away, do you think the 7'2" guy is going to be able to respond quick enough? Probably not. Sifu Lamar is incredible at trapping, his JKD is very good friend with Sifu Tom. Yes, exactly. I was at a seminar at Lamar School. There, Tommy came. This was, I think, 2013, something like that. Long time ago. 100% just hit, don't look to trap or stick. They are incidental. Trapping and sticking are like backup. Exactly. So it's just another way to kind of put yourself in a safe position. But you don't look to do that. That's the thing that most people miss. A lot of people practice and teach that as a method to keep students, which, whatever, if that's what you want to do. But if you get in your head that you're going to just trap someone and like force them to be tied up, it's probably not going to go too well for you, especially if someone really wants to hurt you. Matthew Ingles, you're right about trapping being incidental. I'm a former Wing Chun practitioner, and the biggest misconception of trapping in the JKD community is that Wing Chun practitioners chase hands to trap. Yes. Your goal should always be to hit first, right? Again, if something goes wrong, you have to have a way to fix it. So, Bartron, Bruce said he had to bust Kareem lead leg in a real fight, supposedly. Yeah. Longest weapon, nearest target, right? None of this stuff goes away. You use your longest weapon to the nearest target. And you get to decide what kind of configuration you want to use. Some people use punches, some people use finger jabs, some people use the knife edge of your hand, their palm, right? You can use individual fingers. Tommy told us that one of Bruce's favorites, when he's standing in like a non-defensive posture, like a concealed stance, he'd stand like this here with one arm crossed, and he would just take his finger and go right to the target, right? Imagine a guy that's that fast. You just go, pow, takes your eye out with like extremely strong finger, right? Let's see. I like to watch CCTV YouTube encounters. Yep. The person that throws the first wins the fight in seconds. Yep. That's why it's so crucial to have awareness. So, a thing that a lot of people say is like footwork will beat any punch or kick. I think it's like a Bruce's quote, and I think certain JKD people talk about how important footwork is, and it's true. To be able to move your feet and be mobile and be safe is very important. But what's more important is training your eyes to pick up when to go, because if you catch them early enough, right, you can go straight in before they've started to move. You can take them before they've even it's become physical, right? But if they start to move, right, you catch them and you see them start to move, or they start shifting their weight, you see the shoulder line. As soon as you start to see that, or any kind of facial expression, then you move off, then you hit, right? That's when you start to use footwork. But a lot of people don't understand like how important your awareness is. Let's see. The only people that chase hands from my research is the Danny Santo JKD community, which is opposite of the intention. Yeah, I'm sure there's more, man. There's more people to do that. Going first reinforces what Tommy teaches: be first, intercept, don't wait. Yes. Have you read on Wrath of the Dragon, page 169, about Bruce's negative reinforcement machine with holes of various sizes, in which if you didn't punch fast enough, you would get an electric discharge? I think I've heard John Little talk about it. It was like a mask, and it had holes in it for like finger jabs, and as soon as you touch it, it would shock you. I think I've heard John Little talk about that, but I think I remember reading it in the book. Yeah. Trapping will just never work in a real fight. Hell, even Wing Chun got spar unrehearsed. It gets all sloppy and messy. Only works rehearsed and cooperative. It's because a lot of the stuff that's shown in Wing Chun, like real Wing Chun, is just a drill. It's just a sensitivity exercise. If you're doing any kind of like striking, like punching, kicking, finger jabs, whatever, palm strikes, you should probably be doing some kind of sensitivity as well. If you're not fast or aware enough to go through, like go around people's obstructions, so wherever they have their arms, if you can't be fast enough to go around them, you probably should have some kind of sensitivity. So if they give you pressure, you know how to go around it. Or to disengage, change levels. It's a good idea to train sensitivity everywhere, just as much as your eyes. But your eyes is your first line of defense, besides hearing behind you. Let's see. I'm struggling working with my left forward side. I like to practice power side, but I also practice left hand side, but it's a struggle. Yes, the left hand is hard for everybody, Anthony. You're not alone on that, man. Sorry, my camera here is messing up. Need a new cord for this thing. Wait 1 second. I don't know what happened with it. There we go. Maybe it'll catch up eventually here. Here we go. Let's see. All right. I think it's back on. I didn't even touch it. That's the thing. There's like a ghost in my camera here. I haven't even touched it. Jeff Hollows. Any plans on returning to Scotland to visit Tommy? Yeah, at some point, man. I got a baby on the way, so that's kind of my priority right now. I got to get him started in his training, so we can take him and Tommy can train him personally. Hitting on gut feeling is what I do. The only thing you can get done by the cops if CCTV cameras are there. The way to get around that is like to make sure that you're not the aggressor. Make sure that the other person has shown their intention that they're going to attack you. And you said, look, I don't want any problems. And then they step forward and then you drop them. That's how you deal with that. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I got a lot of work ahead of me. Shared the hell out of this video. This is too good. Hey, thanks, Alex. I appreciate it, man. I hope your weight training is going well. I know you're doing a lot of non-classical stuff. It'll definitely help you. The thing about weight training is a lot of people think that it's going to slow you down. Yeah, it'll slow you down if you're trying to change your shape. Like if you're trying to get larger, your structure gets kind of larger and it's harder to keep your structure tighter. But if you do weight training properly and you keep your calories and your protein, all that stuff in check, and you have it in a sensible structure, you'll increase your force production without increasing your shape too much. That's the thing. So you'll increase your overall force from all your muscles, if you train properly, in order to deliver harder shots, which is what I do. What would be the best move when it comes to training, in your opinion? I live in New York, but I want to be an IFO practitioner, and all that's available is Tommy's online lessons. Matthew, I started with the online lessons, and eventually I went to Scotland. I started in, I think, 2009, just reading about Tommy stuff, starting the lessons, and then I went to see him in 2010. So I went to Scotland. As far as training, I don't think we have anyone in the northeast region of the USA. Probably your best bet would be to get to an IFO person in the United States, closer to you. I might be probably the closest person, and I'm in Mississippi. However, I might be moving a little bit more north, central USA, the next few months. We're contemplating on moving closer to the mountains, the Smoky Mountains. So that might be an idea. But like you, I spend a lot of time just training myself. A lot of people don't know that. So yeah, that might be an idea. Aki, I'm glad to hear it, man. Tom C. I like Adam Chan's Wing Chun. He trained with Jesse at the time. Very honest about what he does. Doesn't work for Wing Chun. It's very humble. Yeah, because he knows the. He also trained with Wang Shenlong. I don't know if you heard about that, but yeah, he's got a lot of common sense in his practice. Alex, you're a good coach. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Aki, nobody with knowledge really does them. Congrats on the new baby, JP. Thank you, Gus. Sadali, hey, hi, sir. Hope you're good. I like you. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate all y'all's support. I got to dip out. We'll catch up. Thank you, JP, for the work you do. You're informative, humble, very skilled. We appreciate it. Thank you, man. I'll keep doing it as much as I can. I don't know. I can't promise when the baby gets here. I might have like really dark circles under my eyes when I start streaming when he's here. But we'll see. Hopefully we can keep it rolling. All right, guys. Well, about to have to head out. I have to pick up my fiance from work. Then I have to go to my first client. And then I have some remote people I have to train online. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy the stream. Aki, what's the difference between a masterful side kick to the knee compared to someone that's average with it? Relaxation and good body mechanics. So timing, to answer your question, a skillful person is someone that has really good awareness. They know when to go, right? They're deceptive and they can judge distance and time very well. That's what makes a skillful person. Alex, I hope you enjoyed it, man. Thank you for coming by. Anthony, finger jabs is better to flick out of fingers when going real powerful. It's not as dangerous fight. What's your take? It's a good idea to train your fingers to land relaxed. So like that. Land in different positions. So you see pictures of Jesse and Bruce like throwing different types of finger jabs. You always see this one with Bruce in like a lot of pictures. But there's more than one way of finger jabbing, right? You can do it that way. You can do it that way. Hell, you can even use your thumb. So like the one that Bruce did, where he would go this way here. A lot of people think that it's just the two fingers, but the thumb is right there if you slip it. So if you start to turn your head, he could catch you with a thumb in the eye like that. So there's more than one way to do it. You don't have to always land super stiff like this. You can land like that. So you could just reach up and go like that. Your hands, wherever it may be, go like that. And it doesn't have to land stiff. It can be just kind of relaxed. Because all it does is have to touch the eye. How much force does it take to hit the eye? Not much, man. And people say, oh, well, if you miss, I can go again. Because it doesn't take any force. And if the head moves away, there's the groin, there's the knee. Simple. I'm listening. Let's see. Hold on a second. Finger jab's better way to flick it. Yes. I want to be strong in my knuckles and hands. I would suggest to get like, you ever seen those canvas bags where you can put like stuff in it? You can put sand in it. You can put like little pebbles or like beans, right? You can fill it up with like a certain material. I think it's like a Wing Chun bag where they condition their hands. But you can put different materials in there. And I would start with something kind of soft, right? What you do is you have it lay it flat and you do all three surfaces. So the back of your hand, the knife edge of your hand, and then the palm. And you just let gravity drop. Like that. That's from Tommy. And then Howard Williams showed him that. That's like the iron palm training from James Lee. James Lee taught Howard. And then you have the poison hand stuff where they break the collarbone. So your hand is like a weapon. Have you got Revolt, JP? What is that? I don't know what that is. Matthew, I'm listening. My girl and I definitely talk about traveling to you for a week in Scotland one day. In the meantime, I have your videos, Thomas Marks. Yes. I suggest taking all the material that Tommy showed you, like in his online lessons. If you go to his Facebook page, if you watch his stuff on Facebook, he's got so much more material. And really, if you really listen to what he's saying, you don't have to have, like, it's not a great need to have someone, but if you have someone, of course, they can shortcut, a lot of mistakes that you might have. But there's so much material, quality material, you don't have to have someone, and that's more or less how I've kind of taught myself. Just watching the clips, and then I would go visit them, and then I would trial and error, and this didn't work, so I'm not going to do that anymore. Modify it, go back to the drawing board, more reps. Plus the Wing Chun class I definitely was planning on going back to. Yeah. Cool, man. All right, guys. Well, if you missed any of the stream, I'll keep it up, and you can go back and watch. I put a lot of good stuff in there about Bruce's training, the reasoning why he changed a lot of his training, give you some ideas about your own training. The thing about this stuff is like, it's important to know what makes the techniques work, not just the technique itself, because you could take almost any sensible technique that's simple and direct and just train it really hard the right way, and make it work. So it's important to know what makes it work, right? All right, guys. I'll probably stream again next Thursday. But if you have any questions, just post it in the comment section on my YouTube channel, and I'll try to get to it, or I'll try to cover it in the next stream. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.